Hey everybody, it's Gary, Crash Test Uncle. This episode and the next one are talking about my personal crash test with reality, and it didn't go well. It didn't go too well for me. Uh, this has been a hard one as I've just hesitated on how to even begin, but I just hit record and here I go. I'm just going to tell the story as best I can. Um, on April the 23rd, 2013, my daughter was living with me. She was estranged from her mom and living with me. I was driving her to school every day, also running a commercial aviation company at the same time, and dealing with a lot of stress, workplace stress, dealing with government regulators, and some of which were just idiots. But that's a whole nother episode. As we talk about ontology, when you talk about people living in two totally different worlds, deal with government regulators, and some of them are in a totally different world. But that I digress. Let me get away from that. I was dealing with just enormous stress in my life. And what led up to that, I would love to play the victim and tell you how everybody did me wrong. And I'm just, don't worry, I'm not going there. Um, I've got a friend who lovingly said to me one day, he said, Gary, wherever you go, there you are. And I understood what he meant. There's a lot of things in life that happen. I don't care if you're the best person in the world or you're a scoundrel. You're going to go through hard times and you're going to have some good times. So defining your own goodness by crap that happens to you is a big mistake. Uh, Playing yourself as the victim when you may be the victim of your own choices, and I can own some of that in my own life at this point, having looked back over the last 13 years. I mean, next month will be 13 years from my brain injury, brain bleed, whatever it was that happened to me that changed my life forever. Uh, and it's getting easier to talk about. I haven't really, I mean, putting this out on the internet for the public is hard for me, but I think it's something that might help some of you, and that's why I'm doing it. Um, Early that morning, I talked to my friend Cass and Susan. We were going to go to the big parade in San Antonio on the river that evening and had big plans. And I got my daughter up early in the morning, got her ready for school, and was driving to school in one of my delivery vehicles, but it was stick shift. And so I was driving that stick shift through rush hour traffic. And the day before, the Sunday before, this was on a Monday, uh, I'd been at church at the gathering, and my pastor Drew Witt and his wife Sherry were there, in all of our community, sweet little Anglican community in downtown San Antonio. Great memories, wonderful people, and and they were there in a season of my life where God, I needed that. I needed that kind of community. Um, anyway, I'm driving my daughter to school, and I'm dealing with well, we're in the middle of a custody battle. There's a lot of crap and drama, and I've lived most of my life post divorce fighting a narrative that wasn't true, and I know a thing or two about false narratives, and so I was in the middle of just the worst existential battle of my life, and poor pitiful me, guys. I'm just a little victim here, but bottom line, I wanted to help my daughter. I wanted to save my daughter, and taught me some things in the last several years that one of my biggest problems in life was trying to be everybody's savior. Now I want to help people, not save people. I mean, I want people to be saved. I want people to know God, but it's not my job to go out and rescue and save everybody. It's my job to speak the truth, to be honest, and to just be straight up. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's part of this podcast, is just to open up to people. And this is the deepest I've ever opened up with total strangers on the internet world. But that morning I was driving to school, taking my little girl to school, and there was something wrong with the car. It kept running off the road. I don't know what was, and I was in rush hour traffic, and I would get it back on the road. That stupid car. The car was doing something wrong, and it wasn't the car at all. It was me. I was behind the wheel, and for some reason, I kept running off the road. And my daughter, I'm talking to my daughter. I thought I was talking to my daughter, and she goes, "Dad, I don't even know what you're saying." And I'm like, and I'm talking, and I know exactly what I'm saying, and she does not know what I'm talking. And she goes, "Dad, we saw a film in class. You're having a stroke. You need to go to the hospital right now." And being the badass that I thought I was, I drove her on to school, sat in the drop off line, brain bleeding. And she's like, "Dad, no, you need to go to the hospital." Okay, I'll just smell it. And she gets out of the car. I drive in the direction of home, which is a good 30 minutes away, and I'm still in kind of rush hour traffic. And I see a Starbucks, and I'm like, "That's what I need. I've got this headache. I don't feel good. I'm gonna get a double shot Americano. That'll help me." So if you got high blood pressure, yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I pulled over. I walked in to and I did the Monty Python funny walk. I think is what it looked like when I walked into Starbucks, and I'm like, double shot of special Americanos, and they made what I normally got and gave it to me, and I get back in the car and I'm drinking my Americano, stick shifting, and I somehow get home, and I pull in my driveway, and I get out of the car, and I don't know, my driveway maybe had potholes in it that weren't there before, but I just couldn't walk. It was too rough. It was weird. And the darn coffee kept slipping out of my hand. My coffee fell on the ground, and I ended up in the house, and I decided the smartest thing to do was not go to the hospital, but I just needed to take a nap. And my doctor told me it's a miracle that I didn't die, because I should have. My blood pressure later that evening, when I finally did end up in an emergency room, was like 220 over 107 or 117. It was stupid numbers, but I I went up and crawled in bed and just laid down, and I texted my sis Pam, the Purple Phoenix. She will be on my podcast, and we'll be talking about some things soon. But I told her I feel like shirt, or so. I couldn't even spell the bad word, the S word, and she's like, "Gary, something's wrong, really bad," and I just went to sleep, and I really should not have woken up, but I woke up, and it was time to pick my daughter up from school, so I got up and I could. It's funny when you're having a stroke, and if you've ever had a stroke, or if you've ever had a brain bleed or something like that, there is a disorientation that takes place where you do not realize that you're compromised. You think you're the same person, and there's things that you can't do, but you don't know you can't do them. And so I dragged my butt out to the car, and I'm having trouble shifting, but being an old trucker, I'm just grinding the gears, floating the gears. You don't have to use a clutch to shift if you know how to drive a stick shift. And so I go to her school, pick her up, and she goes, "Daddy, did you go to the hospital?" No, I just got some rest. I hadn't been, and my daughter, just exploded on me. She's like, um, 11, 12. This was about a year or so. No, it's a few years. She's probably 12. She was like 3 years after our engine failure in Fayetteville together, and she's just all over me. "Daddy, you need to get to the hospital." And I'm driving. I'm down the road, and the car is still just acting weird, running off the road, things like that. And she grabs the wheel. There's an emergency room, and she pulls the car off a ramp. And then, okay, okay. So I drive up, and and pull into a parking space right by an emergency room at Christus, San Antonio, off 151. And I get up. My daughter just takes off running and runs into the emergency room and starts screaming, "Help! My daddy's having a stroke. I saw a video on it at school." And anyway, some people come out and I'm totally fine. But the parking lot, again, it's like my driveway was. It's uneven and it's hard to walk on their stupid parking lot. Nothing wrong with me, mind you. But I dragged my ass into that emergency room. And and she says, "Okay, sir, what kind of symptoms have you been having?" I said, "Oh, my daughter says my speech is a little slurred or what." And immediately she says, "Come with me," and drags me back into an examination room. And guys, pardon the language. I know there are kids that are going to watch this, but I'm sitting there on the gurney, and the charge nurse, it's Christus, and she's a nun. The charge nurse is wearing a nun frock, and she's taking my blood pressure. And all I remember is the charge nurse, who is a nun, looking at the meter and going, "Oh shit," and running out of the room. I remember that, and I went, "This must be bad," and it was. Next thing I know, I'm on a gurney getting pushed down, and while I'm there, you know, when I get back, my family from the gathering is there with my daughter, and anyway, they showed me the CAT scan, and where there was a bleed, there were two spots on my right side of my brain, and I had this paralysis thing on my face. I didn't realize it, and you know, one of the members of our church was a doctor, and he was very helpful. He showed up, and he was like, "Well, yeah, it could be Bell's palsy, but you just need to go back in for evaluation. They're going to do some tests on you, and they're going to admit you, and your daughter's fine." And I remember getting pretty emotional about that. Anyway, sorry guys. Uh, that night, I had my brain started swelling in the middle of the night, and they raced me down. I remember seeing lights going over my head. It's like a scene from a movie, and they're running, and I'm like, "This probably isn't good." And they shoot this dye into my brain and roll me into this MRA machine, whatever. And I hear the MRI machine, the loud grinding noise, and I'm just laying there. And I thought, I'm gonna die. And the next episode, I'm gonna talk about what happened after that. But guys, I'm just telling you that I don't care how badass you think you are, or how good life is going for you. You're making lots of money. I was doing great until I wasn't. And I'll never forget, after coming out of that stupor, or still being in a stupor, but they roll me in a wheelchair to meet with my neurologist a couple days later. And I have always been amazed at how highly intelligent people like me, I ramble a lot, but highly intelligent people can say a whole lot of stuff in just a few words. And my doctor comes in, she goes, "Hello, I Dr. Cheng Kang Hong." I didn't know her name, but she was Chinese. And she goes, "Now, Mr. Richie, you got stroke right side your head. Your neural pathway like 4-lane superhighway. Run for your brain, wiggle your finger, wiggle your toes. Now, here's what happened to you, Mr. Gary. Big tsunami come, knock out all your highway. Now you got dirt road." And then she proceeded to explain to me how therapy would be like repaving a dirt road to get my brain to talk to the rest of my body. And then began a long 6-month period of learning to walk again, learning to use my hands, and playing the guitar. I mean, I play enough to write songs, but I'm I'm not going to say I'll never will, but I have yet to play like I used to. And, um, I had this thing in my head because there was a lot of stuff going on in my life, bad things, hard stress. And I remember thinking, man, my health, what if I lose my health? What if I can't fly airplanes anymore? What am I going to do? And I always thought, well, I've got to fall back. I can go back into professional music. I was playing on the radio. They were playing my music on the radio. I mean, both my fans loved me. So I said, I'll just play music. I might even lead worship at a church or something, but I'll do music that I can fall back on that if I can't fly airplanes. And what I did not realize is my identity was based on what I did and not who I am. And I don't know what you base your identity on, but when you lose your ability to do everything that you did and all your plan B's and C's and everything that you had ordered out in your mind of how you could rise from the ashes and you'd be okay. When they're all burned up in the collision, the crash that you have with your health, with reality, whatever, and you've got nothing to fall back on, that's where God steps into your life. And so I have atheist friends and I love talking to them because my faith is not an emotional thing. It may seem like it sometimes, but I know God is real. In the next video, I'll go into detail about part of an experiential thing that you can easily dismiss if you want to. But I'm telling you, God came into my room and visited with me, and I'll share that with you guys in the next episode. I just want you to know, no matter what happens in your life, if you have a foundation, a true foundation that's built on God, that's built on real faith and not just your feelings or what you think is right or wrong, but you truly have a foundation, even if you don't really walk it completely, I want you to know that God will visit you and he'll do what he did to me. He'll show up in your darkest hour. And if you've got true Christian friends, they will too. And anyway, I know this is kind of an awkward, I don't know how to end this, but the next episode, I'm going to go into what happened that night in that hospital room after I came out of the MRI, and they thought my brain was swelling and that I was dying, and I did too. I thought that was my last night on the earth. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.